Michael Smith of Brother from Another, along with Michael Holley, follows this program every single day on NBC Sports on Peacock, and I always love chopping it up with Michael.
Yeah.
And he joins us now here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Michael?
Good. Enjoying your conversation. Speaking of Twitter, did you see what Schefter tweeted 2 minutes ago?
I don't believe so. What did he tweet 2 minutes ago?
Last week, Antonio Brown and his agent requested that the remaining $2 million in incentives in his contract for the season be guaranteed per Bucs GM Jason Light. The team declined to guarantee those incentives.
Well, and then now, look, man, here's the thing. With Antonio Brown in the history, because, again, I have the history. I've got those receipts as well. It always is something to do with his contract that sparks it. It did it in Pittsburgh. He got to Oakland at the time, and they gave him his money. That was the weird thing about all that, is that was about whatever the hell that was about. And then the Patriots thing was about not having his back. Now this is about money, and all of it winds up on his Instagram account or his Twitter account when it doesn't go his way. And
with his bank account information.
I saw that too. Look, I'll just give you the floor on the subject matter and what you think of the saga, because it is a spectacle. Mm-hmm. Michael, I'll just give you the floor on that. What do you think of it?
I think, guys, after last night, and I read Antonio Brown's statement several times, and you want to talk about there will be lawyers, this is a pretty easy investigation because there was some subjectivity in some of his perspective on what transpired on the sideline and how he was feeling, how hurt he was. But there was also some things that were objectively provable with a paper trail. And you saw his version of that paper trail this morning with some of the alleged text messages that he released. I would just point out that this is the same person who not only faked his vaccination status, but when he was busted, staged both being vaccinated, a nurse, and a clinic, like staged the cover-up that he was vaccinated, in the process of trying to prove that he did not fake his vaccination status and that he was in fact vaccinated, produced a fake nurse and clinic to support it. So I say all that to say this. All that we know right now is that we don't know. We know that we know not. Actually, I'll amend that. The one thing we do know, all of us know about Antonio Brown, is that it always ends badly. It's just a matter of how. Now, to your point about this binary world we live in, and I've been talking about this for the last couple of days, because when the conversation around Antonio Brown got toward the mental health space, you had people on one side, and it's really just representative of how we talk as a society. You had people on one side that were dug in on, this guy's a knucklehead, this guy's a clown, this guy's a jerk, look at his track record, stop making excuses for him. And then you had the people on the other side that were like, pray for Antonio Brown. This is clearly a cry for help. He needs help. Bring that together. There's a middle ground there. It could be a combination of both things. More than one thing can be true. Likewise, for the Bucs, could the Bucs have been the latest example of a team enabling him for the sake of taking advantage of his talent and therefore needed to be held accountable themselves? And could they have just had enough and said enough is enough? Even if he does need help, said, you know what, we've done all we can here. More than one thing can, again, be true. So now fast forward to today. That was when it was just about mental health. And what Antonio Brown may or may not, I stress, may or may not be dealing with emotionally or psychologically. So now fast forward to today. Same thing. Same dynamic is at play here. And TJ, that's what you were speaking to on social media. Same dynamic is at play. I'd be willing to bet that the majority of the people who are going at Bruce Arians were already predisposed to defending Antonio Brown. And I'll bet that the majority of the people who are discrediting Antonio Brown's version of events were already predisposed to being sick of his act. So nothing that happened last night is probably going to move people from their side of the aisle. Like either you're standing with Antonio Brown, more than likely. I'm not saying it's 100%, or you're sick of Antonio Brown. And so said on that sideline, we may never know what was said on that sideline. The truth, more than likely, as usual, lies somewhere in the middle, and that's that nuance y'all are talking about, which is increasingly scarce in our dialogues. That is probably, both sides probably are telling some version of the truth. One guy's credibility is at issue. One guy has a track record of dysfunction, and that doesn't help him. But that doesn't mean he's completely lying here or lying at all. He could be telling the truth in this instance. That's that cry wolf reference you made earlier. On the other hand, did the Bucs do everything right? Maybe, maybe not. But I go back to the larger point, which this was always going to end badly, because it always does with Antonio Brown.
Michael Smith of Brother from Another on Peacock, NBC Sports on Peacock, follows our show every single day. How do you think the Kyrie Irving return ends? How do you think it ends? I have my 2 cents. I'd like to hear yours.
I think he ends up getting a shot. Now, last night, he seemed like he was very used a lot of passive verbs, or he seemed to suggest that I hope it works out, and it almost suggests that he hopes that like the mandate is lifted, or
that's not happening.
Right, you know what I mean? But he seemed to kind of put it off as if it was somebody else's decision as to whether or not he could play, as if he had nothing to do with it, But I think the more the season goes on, it's going to be really, and as the stakes get higher, it's one thing to miss 35 regular season games. As the stakes get higher, I think it's going to be harder for him to be a part-time player. And I think as the playoffs roll around, I think he ends up getting the shot. He's proved his point. He's stood on his principle. The Nets have met him halfway by allowing him to be a part-time player. I don't see him sitting out a home playoff game because he's unvaccinated, especially given how well he was received by the team last night. I think it's actually, relatively speaking, a happy ending in Brooklyn as it relates to Kyrie's vaccination.
Well, I hope you're right, Michael. I'm taking the other approach, and his comments about, as you pointed out, him thinking it's really someone else's decision points to that he won't do it, and he will do what we saw last night. He's so good, man. He's so good.
You think him being allowed back makes him more emboldened to not get the shot?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. I think so, because the Nets said a few weeks and months ago, this is not workable. Now it's suddenly workable. Mm-hmm. And not only workable, it worked last night. All you had to do was poor Lance Stevenson, right? I mean, what a big game he had last night, 20 in the first, 30 overall.
Incredible.
I know. And it's kind of like, too bad Kyrie came back too. And that's the difference, right? Because Kyrie came back. If Kyrie wasn't there, I think we'd be talking about Lance Stevenson today, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. That was, fun to watch, fun to see.
Born ready, stay ready, so you ain't got to get ready.
So, but last night, Kyrie showed you what this team could be and look like. And I already saw on Twitter that people are in line with what I think his plan is. Ball out and then say the mandate's unfair. And it's not the reason why that he's not playing is not the choice, his choice. It's the choice of New York City and their draconian public health measures. Like, that's the way it's going to go. That's the way it's absolutely going to go.
But it's just like I was saying about Antonio Brown. Same way people looked at it before. The talking points haven't changed as far as I can tell. I just feel like the reason I'm optimistic, and I'm optimistic to a fault oftentimes, is that this is easy to talk about when the stakes ain't that high. It's the regular season. We're just into 2022. There's going to be more pressure on Kyrie Irving internally, both in terms of his teammates who he purports to love and care about, and who care about him and who have supported him, the organization that he's a part of, as well as, I'd like to think, the competitor that Kyrie Irving is. And look, man, Kyrie Irving is the last of the Mohicans here. He's the last one standing. He wasn't the only one in the preseason that didn't want to get vaccinated. Andrew Wiggins ended up getting vaccinated.
He did.
We'll see what Novak Djokovic ends up doing. I don't know.
Well, no.
Who knows? But I think when it comes time to pursue a championship, I think it's going to be harder for Kyrie to continue to stand on this principle, well, whatever principle that is.
Yeah, I understand that, and the difficulty will be him saying, he doesn't stand for anti-vax, and he doesn't stand for, but what he stands for is his freedom to choose. And New York City is the problem, not his choice.
But he's already got his out, though. He's already got his out. See, he's always said, I am not. Excuse me. He said, I am not anti-vax. I am not a COVID conspiracy theorist. That's what he has said.
Well, he's going to earn it. Because it's honestly, this is the way it's going to go, man. We already saw it again, as you pointed out just yesterday. With the Australian Open, it just so happened that the Prime Minister of Australia sided on the side of their mandates and their approach, correct?
Right.
And the people who have been living under that approach were like, why are we making an exception for him?
Right.
I'm just wondering how the folks in New York City will react if the Nets need the extra help at home. Because we looked at it. I mean, there's going to be the last 4 games he can't play. One of them's at the Knicks. The other 3 are at home. The last 4 games of the season he can't play. There's certain stretches we're not going to see him for another 5 days now. Yeah. And if they struggle at home and we come this is going to just build steam. And I honestly hope I am wrong. And I'd love to just talk about the X's and O's of it. I'd love to see Kyrie Irving play the entire time. But, for those who live in a city where the mode of transportation of getting around is in a tube or in a bus mostly, and where most housing is where people live literally on top of each other, this is the way that they need to have an approach towards battling COVID. And he won't take the shot. And I'm saying that it will wind up being the conversation. You already see the media even describe, there was a tweet yesterday in the Daily Beast, Djokovic won't take the shot. Australia tells him to take the shot. We don't know how this can be fixed. Well, yeah, one guy could take the shot.
Well, no, it's simple, and that's what I'm saying. The pressure is going to build on him. He's not going to win. He's not going to win in a battle against a state and local government mandate. What I'm saying is he has already given himself an out because he said from the beginning, this is an ongoing process. I don't know what other facts he needs. I don't know what other so-called research he needs to do. But Kyrie Irving is in position to be able to, for whatever it's worth to him, save face. Kyrie Irving can get the shot and simply say, I needed time. And it doesn't make him a sellout. It doesn't mean that he caved in and gave in to the man. It doesn't mean, that he lacks conviction or whatever. He can, because he never said I'm anti-vax, even though his behavior suggested that he's anti-vax. He seemed to be anti-vaccine mandate. At the end of this, Rich, I hear everything you're saying. I believe he's going to come around, and his explanation is going to be, I had to go through my process, and I arrived at a place where I was comfortable taking the shot, even though there is very little, if any, further information about the safety and efficacy of the vaccines than there were before.
Well, I hope you're right, Michael, because I would like to have in this pandemic, that sports bubble. That's what I try to create here every day. Unfortunately, it gets pierced by the vaccine conversations and COVID, diagnoses and things like that. I'd rather just have a conversation and watch the big 3 play with each other and
we haven't seen
ball
him since
out,
last
man.
year before last night. Wasn't that a treat?
It was. I love. He's so good.
He's gifted, man.
And he's exactly what they need. He's exactly the guy. Yeah. It's amazing how it works sometimes that Durant is the best player in the world. I think we can say that right now. And Harden has, for somebody so good, his flaws that Kyrie fills in when the two of them don't click. It's really fun to watch, man. It really is.
Well, and what's also cool, and that's the approach. It's funny we took yesterday. is that, yesterday was just good for fans of basketball and fans of talent. And I thought it's my man Jeffrey Osborne, LTD, concentrate on you, famously saying it takes separation to bring appreciation. And I missed Kyrie. I missed watching him do his thing. I mean, look, man, there are better scorers in NBA history. There are better point guards in NBA history. There are better players in NBA history. But I'll be damned if there's anybody who is more gifted at putting the ball in the basket, more creative at putting the ball in the basket than Kyrie Irving.
He's so good.
He is so good. And that's the thing that we saw last night. And I think for the most part, we'll see. And this will come to a head. And I just can't imagine him sitting on the bench watching his teammates compete for a championship, knowing what a difference he can make. I'm with you, man. It does get exhausting. It definitely gets exhausting. And unfortunately, it keeps finding its way back into the conversations, even in places that we don't expect, which I won't say anything else about that before my blood pressure shoots up again like it did yesterday.
Michael Smith, thanks for the time. Have a good one with Michael Holley. We'll chat again next week. Appreciate
y'all.
Right back at you. Michael Smith on Brother from Another that follows this show on NBC Sports on Peacock. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.